Hello and welcome to Against the Storm, patch 0.55, the Payment Planner update. That's right, it's time to pay your taxes. Actually, you've already been paying taxes. This update just gives us a new UI to help, and a new method, to help better manage those taxes when you have to pay them. So, this is the major piece of this update. This payment planner screen, which I can bring up on the screen here. On the screen, it will be shown the any various tax or fee-based effect that you have applied to your town. And in the past, when those triggered, they just triggered, and the resources, whether it was amber or some other kind of resource, just disappeared from your inventory, and you had no idea why exactly, and you didn't even know that it happened sometimes. Or you would end up paying the penalty for not having said supply, and then you would not really understand why you got penalized. And so they've added this new UI and changed that process a little bit so that you can now manage those payments and have a chance to save up for them and have a chance to pay them when you want to some extent, rather than the payment being taken from you whether you like it or not at the time that they chose. So this applies to effects such as land tax, vassal tax, cloudburst, and several others that are already in the game, and they plan on making it applicable to more than just those in the near future by adding in new effects that take advantage of this new feature. So what happens now is there's a new HUD button up in the top right corner where the other buttons for the screens are found. And on this screen, you are able to see any of these tax type of payments that are applicable to your town. You can see, among other things, what the source of it is, whether it's a forest mystery or a prestige modifier, those types of things. And you're able to see how much you owe, when you owe it, and then select either to pay it now or to pay it at the last minute. You have, if you want to pay it at the last minute, you have until the end of the following season to do so. Or when you want to pay, you have until the end of the following season to do so. So, for example, if you take an effect from, say, a Glade event or something like that that applies to this screen, and you pick it up in the drizzle, you have until the end of the clearance immediately following to pay it off. So this, I could see some folks min-maxing this to make sure that they don't take anything near the end of a season. That way they get, instead take things like that at the beginning of the season. That way you can get a full 2 seasons of time out of it. It really just depends on what the payment cost is. If it's a couple of amber, maybe it doesn't matter so much. If it's a lot of something that you don't have, then obviously you want to have more time to take care of it. So beyond that, there's some new changes revolving around exploration. There's new layouts, a bunch of new layouts for small and forbidden glades. We'll talk about those in more detail in a little bit. And they kind of have a similar, style to glades like we've seen in the past, where you stumble upon what looks like an abandoned town or something like that. Like, they have a theme to them. And so we'll talk about what some of those are in a little bit. They've also done a lot of rebalancing to some cornerstones, some orders, things like that, as always, to make them a little more interesting and have them stand out a little bit. Some examples include things like a cornerstone that is mostly negative may now have a positive effect applied to it. At least situationally, and vice versa. So you'll have to keep an eye on the descriptions for those, but they've also tried to make the descriptions very clear. There's also a new forest mystery. They changed the crashed airship world event which we haven't encountered yet in this series. They moved the Lore Master World event closer to the Citadel, and they've tweaked map generation during a run. So you'll notice some changes revolving around that. The next thing they made a change to is the world map. The world map now has some additional features to it. As you're exploring out, you encounter these dark rings around the world map. These signify the zones at which the world map changes in difficulty, or changes in minimum difficulty, I should say. So you can see there, that first dark ring, just outside of 2 towns back from the last town completed, where the caravan is. There's a dark line around it, and that would probably be the end of the minimum difficulty of Settler range. And then from there, as you can see, it's very huge. And then from there, each ring is only 2 tiles thick. And each ring signifies, of course, another difficulty level, minimum difficulty level for those tiles. So you can easily understand when you're approaching the difficulty minimum where you need to increase. And you'll know that you want to either turn back or turn sideways to stay within your safety zone, or where you can plow on ahead and keep going. That'll at least give you that information. Also, when you mouse over a tile, it will tell you that there are what the minimum level is, which wasn't there before. So in those glades, the new glade layouts, there are 6 new Forbidden Glade layouts, which makes it a little more interesting and enticing for me, specifically, to go and seek out Forbidden Glades, so we can take a look for some of these in our series. One example is that there's a glade completely filled with big and small egg deposits, and a giant Stormbird event in the middle. Another example is a destroyed mining town with lots of ore, drills, and a Rainpunk foundry in that glade. So you can kind of see that there's a theme to each of these, and that's just 2. They didn't tell us all 6. They just told us the 2 in the patch notes, so we have to go and discover what some of these other ones might be. But the idea here is to have a theme, so that the Forbidden Glade is something interesting to open up, and when you do open it up, you're going to get something that fits the theme. One of the other things to note, I did say Stormbird, I just said a Stormbird in the middle. The egg deposits, the ones that were bird eggs, are now renamed to, and I just forgot where the name was, to another name. The reason they did this is to reduce confusion between the giant Stormbird event and what were called Stormbird eggs in the past. So look for a new word for. I was hoping that I would find it, and of course I haven't. In my notes, I didn't write it down, and Drizzlewing. They are now called Drizzlewing eggs. So keep an eye out for that. There are 2 new small glade events, glade layouts as well. And this is to make them, of course, a little bit more competitive with Danger and Forbidden Glades, but not too competitive because, well, they're not worth as much, and they don't penalize you as much for taking them. So, of course, take a look for 2 new small glade layouts in your playthrough, and we will look for them in this one, or in mine as well. They will be themed like those Danger and Forbidden Glade events are, but they don't tell us what the theme is going to be. They added a new force mystery called Rotten Vapors. Machinery has to be cleared with specially prepared drizzle water, otherwise blight rot will spread. Once this effect activates, you have to pay 5 drizzle water, multiply it by the number of years. If you don't, 3 blight rot cysts will spawn in your settlement. So that would probably trigger into the new payment planner system. Another new feature is the trade balance system. Now, if you're trying to buy something from a trader, and you want to just give X amount of whatever item you have in your inventory to balance with that item to make sure that you can pay that trader off, there's now a new auto button on the item window when you click on an item to select how much you want, and it will automatically put enough in there to balance the trade, obviously with the slight amount at or above the amount that the trader wants for the item you're trying to purchase. And you can see that here in the thumbnail, where the fabric is being used after giving some bricks. The fabric is being used to balance out the cost of 10 jerky. You can also, to save a little bit of time, effort, and or mouse clicks, you can also middle mouse click on the item in your inventory to balance the trade. Now, the patch notes weren't specific, and I haven't tested this yet, but I wonder if you can do the same in the opposite direction. Let's say I want to part with 10 packs of trade goods. Can I middle mouse click on the biscuits from Jorg here, for example, and have Jorg give me the number of biscuits that I can afford by giving away those 10 packs of trade goods? I'll be interested to see if that's the case or not as we get into playing the next mini-series. They've also rebalanced, or I mentioned they rebalanced a bunch of cornerstones. So, like the Rebellious Spirit cornerstone, for example, now has a drawback. If a villager dies, impatience is increased by an additional 0.2 points. A Rebellious Spirit is the one where the impatience is reduced, at least if I remember correctly. So this kind of has a counter effect if you trigger it, that makes it that undoes some of the benefit, and vice versa. Economic migration, which sadly I don't remember, has it now. I don't remember what specifically it does, but they introduce a positive effect. So every level of standing with one of the other trading towns increases the amount of resources brought by newcomers by 10%. So they've kind of tried to balance out some of these things by adding in a little bit more effects into it. And as always, they were always rebalancing cornerstones to try and make them more interesting. This is just another stretch in that rebalance. There's a new reward for the Crashed Airship World events. There are different consequences for missing a payment with the Vassal Tax Force Mystery. Now it adds an impatience point as a consequence of a failed payment instead of making impatience grow faster by 33%. So it's an instant effect rather than a permanent effect, which, depending on how long you have, that kind of is nice in a way. The Fishman Soothsayer Glade event has been reworked as far as its working effects, so take a look at those, make sure that you know what you're getting into. And map generation for Settler difficulty has changed. Previously, there were no forbidden glades that spawned on a map in Settler difficulty. Now there are a few. There are always going to be forbidden glades on every map generation after the tutorial, which I think is a good thing, because that way it gives people who want to try a forbidden glade a chance before they step up to the next level of difficulty. Pioneer? I think it's Pioneer. And the Obsidian Loremaster World event can now spawn closer to the Citadel, which makes it a little bit more accessible to folks who are playing at lower levels. There's now a checkbox in the Hearth UI to automatically stop sacrificing resources after the storm. There's also a way to set a default value for this checkbox in the options menu. Wally's hand was raised. I will be setting that in the options menu as soon as we can. Oh gosh. That'll save me so much fuel. Okay, let's see. There's now a game history button in the lower panel in the Smoldering City, and you can also now see the town names in that game history panel, so that you can easily see which town that the game history is talking about. You can auto pause on newcomer arrival via a checkbox in the options menu in the gameplay tab. There's they updated the seal description in the in-game encyclopedia to be more accurate with the changes made in the last update, where how it works when you do a seal run early, etc. The ghost chest has been changed slightly, which I think this is in the cursed biome. I always forget the name of it. No, the sealed biome. The ghost chest now looks like a different type of chest than one of the regular caches, and the description of it is clearer and more understandable. They've cleaned up a lot of other wording in orders, cornerstones, and more to be more understandable, which is always good to have, because for new players, even for veteran players, it can be a bit of a challenge. Oh, and also some blade events as well. I think that more or less covers the patch notes. One other thing: the Brickyard's mesh, the visual representation of it, have a little bit of a different look too. So I'll be interested to see what that looks like, assuming we get a Brickyard in the next town. But things like that are gonna be included all the time. So let's go into the options menu and set that, I'm assuming it's under gameplay, set that checkbox for the whatchamacallit, the fuel sacrifice after the storm. Stop sacrifice after storm. Definitely checking that box. If it gets unset and I want to, if it gets cleared and I want to sacrifice more, then in that rare occasion, I will do it. So with that, I think we're going to leave this here. Hope this patch notes review and commentary was interesting to you. We will be starting a new mini-series with a new town on our world map that has the dark lines on it that we may not be able to see. Yes, I know we have this to do too. We can see them. You can see them even in the fog. So we've now gotten to the point where we can cross into the next zone, the Pioneer minimum difficulty, as you can see in the tooltip in the upper left corner. So Settler here, Pioneer here. And so we will, of course, embark upon a new town in the next day or so, depending on when you watch this, at the usual time, premiering at noon Eastern U.S. time on Friday. So if you're in Europe, that's sometime in the evening for you, depending on where you're at in Europe. Stop by for that premiere, for the live chat in that premiere if you would like to. Otherwise, the video will, of course, be available here on YouTube anytime and forever, or, seemingly forever. So thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all in the miniseries. Bye for now.